This is Canada HR News on October the 30th, 2023. I'm Elena Bobireva. In today's episode, we talk about labor updates from different union negotiations, Alberta's support for people with disabilities to enter workforce, decline in mental health and financial well-being index among Canadian workers, and other topics. Stay with us to get the latest HR updates. TELUS Health released a special report on financial well-being as part of its TELUS Mental Health Index, revealing that nearly one-third of workers want benefit packages with financial planning solutions. The index also found that 44% of respondents say they are concerned about being able to purchase or rent a home. 70% reported not knowing how much savings they will need to maintain their desired standard of living once they stop working. The most concerning mental health and financial well-being scores are among workers who do not know how much retirement savings they will need to maintain their desired standard of living. Workers who know how much they need to save for retirement have the most positive mental health and financial well-being scores. Nearly one-fifth of workers said unlimited mental health coverage is most important in a benefits plan. Workers under 40 are 2.5 times more likely than workers over 50 to consider benefits that provide coverage for parents the most important. After reaching its peak in July at 65.2, the mental health score of workers in Canada continues to decline. It is now at 64.4. Alberta is investing $10 million to help more Albertans with disabilities access employment supports. The government asked community partners across the province for proposals to address the needs of Albertans living with disabilities. The $10 million funding is aimed for providing persons with disabilities with more tools and resources to gain new skills and rejoin the workforce. Organizations receiving funding will partner with employers across the province to recruit and retain workers with disabilities and promote inclusive hiring practices. Financial Post reports on widespread workforce reduction in financial industry. A number of major Canadian and U.S. banks have announced job cuts in recent weeks, with some warning of more layoffs to come as institutions deal with a challenging economic environment. On October the 19th, Desjardins Group said it was cutting nearly 400 jobs, citing a need to trim costs amid inflation pressures and the economic slowdown. The job cuts at Desjardins came a day after Bank of Nova Scotia announced it was reducing its global workforce by 3% due to changes to its operations and customer preferences. A month prior, BMO Financial Group said the closure of its retail auto finance business would trigger an unspecified number of layoffs in Canada and the United States to reroute resources to areas where it was more competitive. Royal Bank of Canada also announced more job cuts in its capital market operations on September the 20th, part of broader reductions announced in August that may climb above 1,000 positions and are aimed at helping the bank deal with the challenging economic environment. The cuts aren't just coming in Canada. A report from CNBC earlier in October calculated that the 6 largest U.S. banks have cut a combined 20,000 positions so far this year, according to company filings. The deepest reductions have been at Wells Fargo and Goldman Sachs, which have cut roughly 5% of their respective workforces. Citigroup, meanwhile, has cut about 7,000 positions so far this year. Experts explain these cuts by a decline in profit margins among the tough, broader macroeconomic environment. The job cuts tend to focus on capital markets divisions, which typically have a high portion of variable compensation for employees. 3 Quebec public sector union federations representing around 430,000 workers say a new government contract offer is unacceptable. Representatives of the unions, which have received a strike mandate from their members, told reporters in Quebec City they will walk out for one-day strike on November the 6th, which could be followed by further strike action. The chair of Quebec's Treasury Board said the government is offering salary increases of 14.8% over 5 years, up from a previous offer of 9%. But the unions say that this figure is misleading and workers would actually only see an increase of 10.3% over 5 years. The union representatives say the offer is 11% lower than a proposed contract rejected by provincial police and significantly less than the 30% increase members of the province's legislature voted themselves earlier this year. Unifor has reached a tentative agreement with St. Lawrence Seaway Management Corporation during mediated negotiations on behalf of Ontario and Quebec members engaged in strike action. Since October the 22nd, about 360 workers have been on strike, shutting down the Seaway, a marine shipping route between Lake Erie and Montreal that connects the Atlantic Ocean and Great Lakes. Ships have been left floating, waiting to pass through. CBC reports that earlier in the week, the mayors of the 4 municipalities along the canal issued a statement saying the strike has significant economic impact and urged workers and management to keep negotiating. The statement says the Seaway supports $12 billion in annual economic activity. Lana Payne, Unifor national president, said the Seaway workers took the very hard decision to go on strike for the first time in 55 years. According to the union, they did so to fight for a more respectful workplace and for an agreement that reflects today's economic times. Details of the tentative agreement will be first shared with members and will be made public once an agreement is ratified. A vote will be scheduled in the coming days. Unifor is set to bargain on behalf of more than 2,800 grocery store workers at Loblaw-owned stores in Ontario and Newfoundland and Labrador. The union is testing whether it can bring the gains it made for Metro workers in Toronto to other grocery chains. According to Lana Payne, Unifor national president, replicating a pattern with the same employer is much easier than trying to replicate it with a different employer, and Loblaw has a reputation for being notoriously tough at the bargaining table. On October the 21st, a collective agreement covering around 1,200 workers at multiple Ontario no-frills stores expired. On October the 28th, an agreement covering about 1,650 workers at multiple Dominion stores in Newfoundland and Labrador expires. Both chains are owned by Loblaw. According to the union, workers tend to be paid less in discount stores, yet amid inflation and rising interest rates, more customers are flocking to them. Benefits Canada has revealed the winners of the 2023 Workplace Benefits Awards. And in this podcast, we would like to share with you some of the leading features of benefit programs. One of the winners of the award is Lululemon Athletica. Their financial wellness program includes educational sessions, a financial literacy hub, and employee focus groups. Recognizing the majority of its employees are generally younger and grew up consuming content on social media, the company partnered with a financial literacy content creator to develop a series of short, educational TikTok-style videos. As the result of these initiatives, enrollment in the group RRSP increased by 181%, while the average RRSP account balance increased by 25%, and the average ESPP participation rate reached 58% across all eligible employees. And this was Canada HR News. Please leave us a rating and a comment in Apple Podcasts and subscribe to our new YouTube channel. You can also find us on Spotify and other podcast platforms. For more information on the topics discussed today, see the episode description and connect with us on X at CADHR News or LinkedIn at Canada HR News Podcast.